Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to do kind of a fun one. I'm going to take this brass coin right here and we're going to emboss it on the xTool F1 Ultra. But we're going to do a little extra spin on it. We're going to take my face and we're going to use AI to generate an actual coin design out of that. So stick around. I'm going to walk you through the whole design process, what I do on ChatGPT to prompt it, putting it in an xTool creative space and my settings, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so here we are at ChatGPT. We're going to use this to create a coin in my image. So I've got a couple of pictures that I took of myself, just one straight ahead and one to the side. So we're going to give it both of those. Obviously, whatever you're doing a coin, it's going to be from the side profile, but just to give it as much information as it can about the structure of your face and all that, it's best just to give it, really, if you can give it as many pictures as possible, that would be nice, but we'll just see what it does with two. I think it'll be plenty. So we're going to say, this is a picture of me. I would like to turn myself into a coin, so take these two pictures and analyze it, something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Okay, so basically I just said this is a picture of me. I'd like to turn myself into a coin. These two photos are for reference, but you should generate the picture of what the coin should look like with my face on it. Do it in the same style as the original sculptor of the U.S. coins. I think his name's Ferguson. I don't remember now. But so let's give it that and see what it does, just for a starting point. Okay, well, that's a pretty good first shot. For some reason, it put Louisiana at the top. I guess it knows that's where I'm from, so it decided to do that. It also put me in a polo shirt. Not sure where it got that from, but so we're just going to amend this a little bit just so we can take away the words, because if we want some words on the coin, we'll just add them ourselves. And we really just need to make it a bust like you would see on a coin. You never really see the person's shoulders or the shirt that they're wearing. So let's tell it to do away with that. Okay, so told it pretty good, so that just lets it know that did decently on the design. It's going in a good direction. But to do away with the text, also it should only be a bust, so it's going to cut it off at the neck here. It should anyway. Which would be commonly seen on a coin. No shoulders or shirt should be visible. Make sure that the style is in the original and it looks realistic. Pretty straightforward. Let's see what it does. Okay, well, it did what I asked, but it kind of turned it at an odd angle, so we'll need to fix that. Okay, so I just told it to make sure that the face is directly from the side angle. You shouldn't be able to see two eyes at all, because obviously I'm kind of turned now. And then also it's kind of losing, I don't really look like that, sort of. But pay close attention to all the facial features in the reference photo for accuracy is deviating from the original. So sometimes whenever it starts to focus on things that you asked it to change, it kind of starts to forget the core parts that it's supposed to be doing. Now, mind you, with a lot of the stuff that I'm editing and doing, I could come in here and, you know, select certain things and then like tell it, take this off or make this bigger or whatever. In my experience, it doesn't really constrain itself to the place that you circled. It will just change other stuff. It may go and change the things that you wanted possibly, but it will change other things too. So a lot of the times it's just easier just to tell it the whole thing out here in the main chat. So we'll see what it does. Okay, that's much better. Not really sure why my eyes are kind of closed here, but you know what? We're going to go with it, because if you look at a picture of a quarter or really a lot of other stuff, they kind of do have that expression. So that's pretty good that it did that. Now, we could have just told it to make a design that was me as a head facing this direction and not to specifically make it a coin. But you'll see why shortly that we did it that way, because all these little extra little texture things right here, it's going to pick that up, the little shading that's realistic right there to what the sculpture would be. It's going to pick all that up whenever we go to the next step, which is the depth map. So we're going to take this, download it, and then get it into an image editing software to crop it out a little bit and kind of get that file, and then we'll take it over to a depth map processing program. So that'll be the next step. So we'll go ahead and download this, and then we'll get over to the next step. Okay, so we're on to the next step. We've got our coin saved here. We're going to open this with GIMP. That's what I'm using just because it's free, but you can use anything. Use Photoshop, use Photopea, whatever. We're not doing any kind of high-level editing here. Basically what we want to do is, because of the next step in the depth map, I really wanted this to look like a coin so that this pitting and stuff, the depth map might actually pick up. So I don't want this background here, and I don't want the rim of the coin, because the coin that I'm using has a rim. So we want to take the rim off and try to get as much as this shadow right here. So we want to kind of eke up to the edge best we can. So to be dead center, and I don't know that the picture itself is dead center, but we're just going to do it for giggles. We're going to add a guide horizontally, image, guides, new guide by %. Set another one vertical, so now we have the dead center here. Let's pick our ellipsis. We're on a fixed 1:1. I want to take that off, and we'll click in the center here and hold down Control and Shift at the same time, and it will come out from the point that you started at, which in our case is the center. And hey, lo and behold, look at that. It is not center. Okay, so and we're going to want to move this around. Oh, whoops. Yeah, we've got it snapping to the edges here. Let's go to view, turn off, snap to guides. Okay. Looks like it's not even perfectly circular. Another reason to crop it. Because if you don't do this and you try to put this on your coin, it's going to be weird. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now that we've gotten that, the method I'm going to use here is just Control C for copy, Control V for paste. It created a new layer over there. Oops. We've got our pasted layer. You can just turn off this layer, and now we've got the cutout here. So if you want to trim it up, you can crop it. That's totally fine too, just so there's not extra on the side. Well, I got extra on the side. Whatever. Good enough. It is going to save this as a transparency on the back here. So we're going to put... All right. We're going to save this as a PNG so that we keep our transparency. All right. Now, what we're going to do, there's all manner of ways you can do this for the depth map. It changes constantly. A month ago it was one thing, now it's another thing. Just basically look into, at the time that you're going to be doing this, what is the best version. What I'm using today is one you're going to hear a lot. Sculptok, have no affiliation, just works the best. Everything else seems to be a little muddy. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to our coin. That did not work. They don't have drag and drop apparently. Okay, so we're going to select our coin, transparency. Okay. We're going to tell it it's a color image because technically it is. Okay, so we have our generated versions here. And you'll see it's got several going here. This is the one that a lot of the times you're just going to see with most programs. It's pretty blurry. It's not great. Then it gets into different versions of it. So basically the white part is going to be your highest part. Out of 256 layers, the completely white is the top layer, and the completely black is the lowest layer, and a gradient in between. So you're going to want to look really closely. Like, see, you can't even see the hairline anymore in here on these two. This one's a little bit better. If you want to do a 3D preview and really look at it, that way you can see what it's going to end up. Whoop, there's a nose. So it actually is picking up the skin texture, the hair texture, all that fun stuff. So that's good. Like something like this, we did the 3D preview of it. It's probably going to be there, yeah, so you can see it a little bit, but it's not nearly as defined. So I think we're going to go, which most of the time I end up going with this one, unless it's something that's text-based or really flat and doesn't have a lot of the gradient to it, then a lot of the times you'll get one of these two. But because we did the coin part, remember we actually have this dark area that's coming along the edge here that you wouldn't have normally gotten if you just asked it for like a side portrait of yourself. It would have looked okay, but it won't look like an actual coin like it should. Like when somebody holds it, like, wow, this looks like a stamped coin. So we get that extra little 3D effect around the edges here. So we're going to end up going with this one. I'm going to do download, 18 credits, pretty penny, but worth it. Because these other ones, like xTool Creative Space, which we're going to be using today for the actual lineup and the design of it, it does this, but not nearly as good. It looks closer to this one right here. And you could go back into your, to your GIMP or whatever you're using, and you can kind of touch it up a little bit manually, but why bother? Or whatever, this does such a good job getting in all the little fine spots. So, all right, so we're going to take this picture, and then we're going to put it into xTool Creative Space, and I'll show you how we get it all lined up and all that. Okay, so we're back here at XCS to get this all framed up. So what we're going to do first here is you're going to place your coin on the laser under the laser dots, the blue and the red. Use your up and down arrow to focus it. If you're not on an xTool F1, just do your focusing on that. Basically, we need to find the outer edge where our rim is raised up. We basically want to find this down area right here, the lower area. So come over here to circle, Control Shift, hold that down, and then just click and drag. And you're going to use your best judgment and put it where you think it might be. It's really the best you can do. And then we're going to frame it up. If you're not familiar with framing, basically what it's going to do is it'll usually default to the rectangle right here. Rectangle is just the most outer edge boundary of your design. Doesn't matter what the design is, it's going to put it in a rectangle or a square in this case because it's symmetrical. So when you turn the framing on, it's only going to be for this square on the very outer edge. So that's good to find a lot of the times your most extreme outside of the piece that you're working on. But we really need to know in this case where the circle falls in the lip. So in this case, we're going to hit outline. When you do outline, it's going to follow the path of whatever you've drawn. So in this case, it'll just be a perfect circle. If you had text, it would follow the text. It does it in this squiggly kind of a fashion, and that way you can get a real time, this is what it's going to look like. Depending on the material that you're doing, you may need to adjust this light power percentage here. Some things are more reflective, and if you turn it up too high, you really can't even see where it is because it's kind of so bright it's washing it out. And then sometimes if it's too low and it's something that absorbs a lot of light, you can't even barely see it, or you have a lot of light in the room or something like that. So I usually keep mine around 6 for what I'm doing here. So we're going to go over here and we're going to click framing. And when we click framing, that's when the blue diode laser at a really low power is going to spin in a circle like this. All right. And then as it's going there, you know, you can adjust it manually. The way that I usually recommend to do it, though it's not perfect because the increments sometimes are too high depending on the tolerance you're trying to go with here. But you can select it and then just walk it with your arrow keys on your keyboard. And as you do that, you'll see it actually move. There'll be a little quick blink and then it'll move on the design. So let's get it centered up here. All right, so now that we got it all perfectly centered, best we can. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to pull up our depth map image that we saved from Sculptok. That's a big ear. All right, and then we're going to scale this down. What I recommend that you do is you take the circle and throw the circle on top. And then now you can see exactly where we place that. By the way, I do recommend, I forgot to do this, but I do recommend making a copy of this circle so we know exactly the size it is because it's about to go away. So let's take this, size it back down. And we just want to get it so that the gray is falling just outside of the blue line. It looks pretty good. I don't know that it's exactly centered. If you want to get it exactly centered, you can. Just come down here, align to center. Ooh, that moved our circle. We don't want to do that. Well, whatever. It's close enough. Now, we want to select both of these, and you're going to come up here to create mask. Create ... Not sure why they didn't just make enough room for the text there, but create mask. You're going to do that and see it kind of like grays out this area right here. It's letting you know this is the mask. And then we'll hit done, and voila. Now, again, if you're looking at this by your eyeball, you would say, oh, that's crooked. That's not right. If you want to make triple sure, again, come over here, make sure you're on outline, and frame it up, and double check it. But if you're good, as your eyeball can tell you, you can let it go. Now, in the instance that you're doing a bunch of these, or maybe you're selling these and you just want them to be as like precision as possible, I highly recommend you creating like a template with a jig. The simplest way to do it, if you're just doing one coin at a time, but you always want it to be dead center, make your circle, put your circle where you need it to be, save that as a template, and then go ahead and do a full engrave pass on a circle. Now let's go back so I can kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So if you went on this circle here and you just told it to engrave right there, so you would put like a piece of metal down there, like say I've got these aluminum blocks that I got from Amazon. They're super cheap. But if you were to set this down and put it in your corner jig over here, put it in the same place every time, mark where it goes every time, and just butt it up best you can. And whenever you do that, just engrave this circle kind of deep, but not super deep, just like maybe a half of a millimeter or something, enough for it to be a groove in there. And if you do that, now you can come back and just set your coin in that every single time. So, and then if you set it in there every time, set it up and go. Obviously, this is something that anybody that uses light burn on a laser without a camera would know, but if you're just familiar with the xTool stuff, that's the way I would do it if you're just doing it and trying to make it precision. Otherwise, get a jig, or laser cut a jig, 3D print a jig. There's plenty of jigs out there on the internet for 40 millimeter coins that work with an F1 Ultra, so get those. All right, now now that we've got this, we're going to come over here to embossment. All right. By the way, nobody tells you that. It seems like they just kind of assume you know it's right there. But that's where it is, right there. So, all right, now that we're doing embossment, we need to pick our material, which the AI decided that it was a brass coin, so good looking out. It is a brass coin. If it does not find it for whatever reason, just search your material right there, or you have some kind of other setting you'd prefer to use, whatever. But do that, and then now Fiber IR is already set. It was on Blue Laser before. It's got the number of layers here, power at 100. I'm pretty much going to leave all this as it is. On the first go around that we're going to do with this, we're going to do a 30 kilohertz frequency. After that, we're going to come back and we're going to do just a couple of passes with 60 just to clean it off a little bit. We'll do some further post-processing after the fact, but with the laser it does that, just kind of knocks off some of the really dirty, grimy stuff, because we're going to put this in a jewelry tumbler, and if you put it in there without doing that pass, A, it's a little rougher, but B, it's got all the soot and grime on it, and it's really gross inside of it. So I highly recommend that you do at least a couple cleanup passes on it at 60 kilohertz. So once you get that going, now in this particular case, I want it to be as much depth and range that you could possibly be in there. Now, having said that, it's going to be a little while for it to process. It takes a long time. That is based off these layers right here, 256 layers. The highest layer is white, and the lowest layer is black. So, if you don't really need that much depth to it, you don't want to dig into it, you want to save time, but you want to give it a little bit of a embossment depth. On faces and things like that, it's really better to go as deep as you can, because that way it gets most of the detail. However, if you're doing a coin that has maybe just mostly text on it or something like that, it's got a little bit of a 3D thing to it, but it's mostly text, or it's something else, an object, whatever, stuff, something with not a ton of fine detail, or with a lot of elevation change that you need to worry about, then you can make it be fewer layers. Now, having said that, if you're actually using a depth map tool that's going to be doing 256 layers of gradient on there, I don't know that this makes any difference, but the times that I've done it, I've tried to do it off of multiples of that. So in this case, I've done it before to where I just divided this by 2, so it did 128 layers instead of just picking an arbitrary 100 layers or 120 or whatever. I don't know that that makes a difference, but it seems like if it's already stacking it for that many layers, at least it just cuts it in half, possibly. Down here, whenever it's got to descend the z-axis every however many layers you set, in this case 1, and then by 0.01. If you do change the amount of layers that you're doing on the depth map, I would eventually recommend playing with this. You don't necessarily have to, but I think you could get a closer to a 256 layer burn out of this if you change these up. So if you make the step be a little bit more per, but again, it's going to be rougher. You're going to lose a little bit of resolution. So if you're going to do that and you're throwing it in like a magnetic tumbler with a lot of steel pins in it, obviously that, makes it smooth. So you're really just going to have to play with it, especially if you're doing this for efficiency's sake. If you're doing a bunch of these at one time, you need to worry about these kinds of things. If you're just doing a one-off and you're going to click it and walk away and go get a sandwich and come back and check on it and whatever, then not super necessary if it takes 3 hours or if it takes 4.5 hours, whatever. So, okay. So now that we've got that all lined up, we're going to, well, before we do this, actually, let's, bring this over here and set it on top of the engraving. Now we're going to kill this output. I don't want it to do anything right now. We're going to come back to this later, but I'm just going to go ahead and get it on there so I don't forget about it. This will be our cleanup pass whenever we get done. Okay, so we got that turned off, that output on. All right, now let's process this fella and see what we're looking like. Huh. Well, it looks like it's going to take this a little while to do. So we're going to set this, and I'll see if I can set up a camera and get a time lapse on this thing, and we'll see what happens. We'll check back in 7 hours and 2 minutes and 30 seconds. See you later. Okay, well, here we are way more than 7 hours later, but it's done. Let's take a look at it here. Came out pretty good. Of course, we're going to need to clean it up. That's just straight up raw, but looks good. So we're going to go throw it in the magnetic tumbler and see how well it gets cleaned up. Okay, so here we are with our magnetic tumbler. I'm using the JX185 magnetic tuber, so super American made. Anyways, works. It's got this steel shot pins thing in here. It's a whole bunch of these, and a magnet on the bottom that swirls around. So we're going to put our coin in with about 4 cups of water, warm water. Okay. And then we're going to do this Shine Bright here, cap full. If you don't have any of this, I recommend getting some. If you don't have any and you need to use some pretty immediately, just use dish soap, very little, like a drop. Okay. All right, and we're just going to drop our coin in there. Throw the top on. And we're going to set it for like 10 minutes and then probably 15, I would say, and check on it. Okay, it's been 15 minutes, so let's check it out. It's nice and foamy. I recommend wearing gloves to do this. It's got little metal shavings you can kind of see on the top right there. Don't want that everywhere. All right, let's fish around in here, see what we can find. Oop, there it is. All right, let's see. It's decent. Still got a lot of charring going on. I couldn't really do any cleanup passes as I was going. I don't think xTool Creative Space does that yet. Lightburn does, but didn't use Lightburn. It's got some good depth to it. It feels nice. So I'm going to throw it back in there for just a little bit longer and do a different cycle on it and see if it'll change it at all. All right, so we're going to drop it back in. This time I'm going to switch it down, and that's going to oscillate it going one way, and then it'll stop and it'll start going the other way. So we're going to do this for another 15 minutes and then come back and check again. All right, let's try this again. If I can find it. Oh, here it is. It's a little better. Took some more off. I don't want to keep putting it in there though, because some of these edges are starting to get, starting to get a little too worn down. So I think I'll just leave it at that, because I'm gonna use some of this brass aging stuff anyways, so it's gonna get down in the flat spots, so it'll just kind of add to the patina color. All right, well, let's do that. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so we're going to take our polished coin and put some of this brass ager on it. You don't need a whole lot, just enough to cover the top of the coin. And we'll just kind of swish it around. The longer it stays in here, the darker it's going to get. That's probably plenty. So we just want to get some color in the low spots, really. And then we'll rinse it off. And really, once it's dry, we'll hit it with the steel wool, because we just want to, get the areas, and the skin and the hair and the ears and the nose and stuff like that, and leave all the pitted spots on the bottom dark. So we'll rinse it off here. And that should be good. And then we'll leave it over here to dry, and we'll come back to it. All right, so it's nice and dried off. Let's take our steel wool, just gently rub it. We're just trying to hit the high spots here. We don't want to get too deep off into the flat areas. And you can feel kind of the ridges with your fingers. And because we erased and it didn't really engrave super deep on the back side of the head here, we just want to be careful to make sure we buff it just on the head and don't veer off too much into the flat area there. All right, and make sure we get the edges really good. Well, that's pretty good. Let's give it a little buff with a cloth. This is just a little canvas cloth that I've got. Use it for leather buffing. Works for this too though, just kind of cleans up. Makes it a little smoother feeling. Especially when you want to kind of get it on the low spots but not actually have any sort of abrasive thing to it. That's pretty good. So now we're going to take it and we're going to put some finishing wax on it just to give it a kind of a little gloss, make it shine a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to shine this guy up a little bit. It's looking okay, but now you'll notice some of the discoloring that it did on the edge here. I think that was mainly because it was kind of annealing it to some degree. Probably need to turn the power down just a hair and the speed up a little bit. Next time on the design, if you look on the back edges of the head here, it kind of runs too flush down in there. And then things like the ears and the nose picked up a little too much. So that's something that we can fix in the depth mapping. And you'll notice in the depth map where it's really white in the top areas, you can go in with something like Photoshop or GIMP or Photopea or something, and you can kind of lighten up the areas that are more recessed than you want to be, and they're kind of flowing into the edge of the coin here. You can kind of see on the neck it's basically flush right there, and then on the back of the head it's also flush. So probably fix that a little bit in the design, but that's why we do the tests, and you'll notice it's ever so slightly off center. So I'll be cutting a jig next time. Maybe I'll make a video about that. Let me know in the comments if you want to see how I do the jig for this thing. But for right now, we're going to do the very last step, and it's going to be putting on a little of this Renaissance microcrystalline wax polish on there. Works pretty good. Gives a good little finish on there. Just this stuff right here. It's very, I don't know what this stuff is made of, but man, is it strong smelling. So if you're doing this in a confined space, try to speed it up. Get a little bit on your shop rag here. It's probably a little too much. Just enough where you can see it, and go ahead and throw the top back on. All right. Okay, so we're just going to take it and just rub it on there. And I'll stop right there so you can kind of see how it's kind of like oiling a cutting board to some degree. You can see the edge right there where I haven't rubbed it. Whoops. Certainly makes it slick. And just kind of get the dry part and buff off the excess a little bit. There we go. It's nice and shiny. Kind of darkened up these lower areas. Then now you can see that kind of copper coloring annealing that it did. And annealing is when you just heat up a certain metal and it kind of distorts the color a little bit. You'll see that with stainless steel a lot, where people will run test grids, especially on like MOPA lasers, to where they can get different colors. You'll get blues and purples and some yellows and things like that out of it. So this is a super cheap coin, just doing it for practice. I'll do another with a much higher quality solid brass. I think this is some sort of alloy mixture because of the pitting in it, and you can tell the way that it was cast. So we'll do a different one next time. But for trying it out and just seeing what AI can do for us, worked pretty good. Now, also, I probably would take my brass ager next time and get a fine tip brush and just go in the hair a little bit, in the beard, because it kind of makes it look like it's the same color as the skin, which makes me look way older. That does not look like me yet. Maybe when I'm like 60 something, maybe. Anyways, so try it out, play with it, see what you can do. You don't have to do this on the xTool F1 Ultra. You can do this on any fiber laser. It just is not going to take you 7 hours and 2 minutes like it took me. Though I think it ended up being like 6 hours and 58 minutes, but who's counting? Anyways, so catch us on the next one. Let me know if there's any other projects similar to this, or if you missed anything in this. I can go back over any details in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.